The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
You know what I think I'd like to do over the next little bit, and it's just, a lot of it has to do with just timing for all of us, is I think I'd like to make Tuesdays shows a little bit shorter in general. And I know I come into a lot of shows and I say, this one's going to be a short one, and then it's 50 minutes anyway. I'm not married to the notion that it has to be a brief show. I just get this feeling like doing an entire hour on this stuff every single day without a guest gets a little bit dry. So we're going to try something new today. We're going to go a little bit faster through the stuff. And what I'd like to do is, a lot of HBO shows have, and I guess even the upper tiers of basic cable have these overtimes, they basically call it. Like Bill Maher has his real time, or what is it? I don't even know what his show's called anymore. Real Time with Bill Maher, Overtime, whatever, doesn't matter. It's a bad start to a podcast, but we're rolling with it anyway. I'd like to do a little bit of overtime where perhaps we engage a little bit more on Twitter about the stuff that I'm talking about on the show. And many of you have questions. I'm not saying that there's not enough. In fact, there's more than enough. I can't keep up with it as it is. But I'd like to, generally, when I post the podcast, which is around somewhere between 10 and 11 a.m. Pacific time, I'm at my computer. So if you guys have questions right when the show first comes out, that's a great time to ask them. So we'll try a little bit of FNBA Today overtime. That'll be what we're going to try on Tuesdays, and we'll see if it sticks. This obviously was a large Monday card. We had a lot of things to talk about, a lot of new players we were keeping our eyes on, so this might not work all that great on this particular one. But as things settle back in and as we start to move on the downslope here, Mondays are often 7 or 8 game cards where if not a ton of things are changing and we don't have a guest, at some point I'm just lecturing to myself. But this Monday was a little bit different, wasn't it? I am Dan Besbris. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a hoop ball presentation brought to you as always by the good folks over at Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. HI Kona Coffee on Twitter, HawaiianIsles.com, and search for Hawaiian Isles at Amazon.com. You can get those goodies straight into your gullet, the sweet, sweet nectar. Coupon is HoopBall over at Hawaiian Isles. You can get 15% off your coffee purchase. They are also giving out the number 2 prize on our weekly DFS contest, which airs tomorrow. We'd love it if you joined us on that one, and I'll take a moment here to tell you about it. DFS contest, 125 slots available right now until we fill it. Last week we got to 103, I believe. Our high is like 108. We've sort of plateaued a little bit, just over 100. Let's make this week the one we clear that hurdle. Let's go big. Let's go big. This is a fun time, guys, to try your hand at DFS because there's all these weird new guys in new spots. So you could really, if you're like me, that can understand how the ebb and flow of a long season can impact a guy, you could really just luck into a good lineup right now. Oh, who's the new guy in town? What's the narrative of this team? How's that going to work out? And then you roll with it, man. It's $3 to play, which is next to nothing. And if you place in the top 20, you get $18.75. And if you place in the top 2, you get a bonus prize. Second place gets the Hawaiian Isles coffee cup, coffee goodie bag, I should say. And first place gets a Hoop Ball t-shirt, courtesy of us at Hoop Ball. At Dan Besbris on Twitter, if you want to give me a follow, we can try this little overtime game. I'm going to try to make a specific tweet that says, hey, this is the overtime one. So maybe we can keep it all into one conversation, and then I can track it a little bit better. Hoop Ball is the website, hoop-ball.com. You can check out the premium membership. That's on sale for $7.99. And with a coupon, you can drop that bad boy as low as $4.99 at Hoop Ball Fantasy or Hoop Ball Tweets on Twitter. Give them a follow as well. Let's dive in. I'm gonna still do my best to keep this thing closer to 30 than 60. That's my goal today. We're gonna get you in and out and on with your life. It's All-Star Week, which means we've only got today, tomorrow, and Thursday to keep track of before we get a break. And then who the hell knows what we're going to talk about on this show. That's going to be a weird time on Fantasy NBA Today. We'll talk gambling. We'll talk what's ahead. We'll talk recap stuff. We'll certainly keep some shorter ones. Maybe we'll even... I I was going to say maybe we'll take a day off, but that's crazy. We don't do such a thing, even if the NBA gets a break. We don't. When podcasts take a break, podcast listeners take a break, and I don't want to separate from you guys and gals. New York and Cleveland. We had an eye on this ballgame for a couple of reasons. Number one, Mario Hezonja moved into the starting lineup for the Knicks, and I thought, well, hey, he's been playing 25 to 30 minutes over the last couple of ball games, 22 to 30. Maybe this is something. Well, he played 16 in this one, and it's why you basically can never trust almost anybody with David Fizdale right now, outside of Mitchell freaking Robinson, who's just the man. He went 5 for 6 from the field. He actually made his first 5 shots in this ball game. He did miss a free throw, but who cares? He went 0 for 1. That's nothing. 1 steal, 2 blocks, so 3 more defensive stats, 10 and 8 with an assist. It's stellar, man. It's a stellar 9-category system he's got going on right now. And he has no reason to ever turn the ball over because he's never holding the basketball. He doesn't have a single turnover since February 1st. He had 2 turnovers in that game. Gasp, I clutched my pearls. And then he promptly went the next 4 games in a row without turning the ball over. Over his last 4 games, since that's what we're talking about right now, Robinson is averaging 12 or 13 points. He's at right around 8 rebounds a game and 2.5 blocks. And that is, believe it or not, sustainable. Because there's going to be a 1 in there at some point, and then there's going to be a 4 in there at some point. Because he's crazy. He's a block monster, and he's not fouling out, and they're letting him close games right now. It's all we could have ever wanted. He's playing his 22 to 24 minutes. I love it. Doesn't matter that DeAndre Jordan's in town, who, by the way, is actually still putting up okay numbers, 12 and 10 with a block, but, lower volume for him at 24 minutes. It's going to be tough for him to sustain what he was doing in Dallas. And Dennis Smith Jr. continues to show, and he had defensive stats in this game, so cut him a little bit of slack, but 0 for 2 free throws, 5 for 12 shooting. He's always going to kill you in the percentages. That's just who he is. Stellar points league guy, though, right up there. But he will murder you in category leagues. Just brutal. Larry Nance Jr. is locked and loaded, and I'm not sure that he ever won't be. My only fear is Tristan Thompson. He's the only guy that could get in the way of Larry Nance right now. I've decided, although maybe a little bit of a shout to Cedi Osman, because what you've got going here is that Kevin Love played 15 minutes in this game. He played them all in the first half, and then after the long layoff, they didn't want to fire him back up again. I'm betting he plays in the second half on Wednesday. I think you'll see him play about maybe fewer minutes in the first half of that game, maybe around 12 first half minutes, and then probably another 7 or 8 second half minutes. Just the first time you can kind of test him on both sides of the break. And he looked good in this ballgame. He kind of ran out of gas late, got off to a quick start, had 12 points and like 4 rebounds on a good, 5 for 7 shooting or something like that. And then he missed. He went like 1 of his last 4, something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter. We weren't trotting him out in this game anyway if you were operating with a games cap, not when you knew the minutes cap was going to be so low, but it was nice to see him channel a little bit of the old stuff. 9 rebounds in 16 minutes, 14 points. He knocked down all 4 of his free throws, those little things that were missing, and a couple of 3-pointers as well. So let's say he gets to 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes, I think, on Wednesday. Maybe the first game out of the break, you think about rolling him out there as he approaches 22 or 24. That's enough for him to be easily a top 100 guy. He could be a top 100 guy in 20 minutes. 24 minutes, he's, top 80, top 75, and that's usable. And then for Nance, he actually played alongside Love. That's what we were talking about on the Friday pod, I think, and then also a little bit yesterday, is that they were able to coexist in the front court because Love can stretch the floor in the offensive end, so it doesn't become a logjam. And defensively, they can kind of hide Love because Nance is much better at that end of the floor. So it actually ends up working out well. The problem might creep in if they try to play Kevin Love with Cedi Osman. Neither one of those guys is going to guard anyone. Nance is going to sort of need to be out there as the buffer. And the only reason that I'm even the tiniest bit concerned is if Tristan Thompson comes back, he could also fill that same role of more of an interior presence. Yes, I know, Nance is stepping out and hitting some 3-pointers these days, but it's not really his game yet. He's rebounding like crazy. He's assisting. He looks great. He's also playing big minutes, and that tends to lead to an injury. So roll him out there as long as you can, And until his role diminishes, I think you just continue to use it. I guess that's basically it for that ball game. We could go on and on and on. Marquise Chris actually played okay, believe it or not. I may have mentioned that. I can't remember if I talked about him at all on yesterday's show. His role is fine at 23 minutes. It's not going to be enough for fantasy value down the line. Brandon Knight actually played 16 minutes in this game, which was pretty weird. I don't know if that's a number that's going to be changing much. But certainly as Osman comes back, if Tristan Thompson comes back, Kevin Love's minutes go up, that's all going to hurt a guy like Marquise Chris. There's sort of no other spot he can play than the ones those guys are occupying. Charlotte at Indiana, my guy Marvin Williams had an off shooting night, but I sort of don't care. He was having some toe discomfort, and he sort of gritted it out with 11 rebounds, 2 steals, a three-pointer. Again, no turnovers. Yes, the 2 for 10 shooting was unfortunate. If he makes one more three-pointer, then we're talking about another fine ball game. If he makes 2 more, well, hell, then we're just riding high. I love me some old man Marv. He's the best. Cody Zeller's been playing really well since coming back from his injury. He had 18 and 9 in this ball game with a blocked shot. Missed a couple of free throws, which has kind of been odd for him this year, but you'll take it. And he looks invigorated. He's playing with a guy that has been able to sit out for a while and get his wind. The missed free throws are a pisser. You know, he was way above his career average for most of this year, so I'm a little worried that this is the regression. But again, since coming back, this is his big minute count, 35 minutes. He was playing 25 a game, but the rebounds have been really good for him, way above his season per minute mark on the rebounding side. I don't know, honestly, if this can keep up. He falls into that category of guys like Tyson or Taj Gibson for most of his Minnesota tenure. And we'll talk about a big thing in that ball game in a minute, where he's always going to sit in that 100 range, and there's sort of no upside with him, but there's also no real downside. And there are plenty of leagues that could use a center like that, one of them being my own. I've had dearth of useful centers in one league, and so Cody Zeller fills that role, but he's never going to be great. He's never going to be a big-time defensive stats guy. The rebounds are above his average right now. He doesn't score all that much. It's just quietly producing and doesn't hurt you too many spots. Hornets signed Shelvin Mack, which made a lot of sense because Tony Parker hurt his back, but that's a non-factor. On the Indiana side, Wesley Matthews made his season debut. He immediately played 30 minutes and had 8 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, and a couple of three-pointers on 2 out of 10 shooting. I mean, this is probably what you're looking at on most nights. He's going to probably get about 10 shots in this offense, which is probably not enough to sustain his value, given the fact that he generally doesn't rebound or assist a ton, a little bit. It's all three-pointers with him, and the steals have largely dissipated at the later stages of his career, so I'm not all that excited about it. I get it. If you're hunting threes, he's an option. But in the next ballgame we talk about, I'm going to look at a guy that I think could actually, over the next 2 weeks, and I say 2 weeks, but that's the span of 3 games here with the All-Star break, could overtake Wesley as the guy you'd want in that spot. Otherwise, simple stuff. Darren Collison, 13 and 8. Thad Young, 11, 8, and 6. Miles Turner had 6 more defensive stats, and he's been just outstanding after a slow first month and a half. Tyreek Evans actually scored 12 points in this game, and Bojan Bogdanovic finally had a slow one, but they won it, 99-90. Low-scoring games, not that common in the NBA, but we had one here. Washington and Detroit, the Wizards still can't guard anything, and we were watching stuff on both sides of this game. Satoransky sat it out with a personal thing, so Chasen Randall started but only played 19 minutes, and they again went to basically a point Beal, and it worked pretty well offensively in this game. Bradley Beal had 32 points and 10 assists with only 1 turnover, so extremely efficient for Brad, but they just don't stop anybody. Trevor Ariza had 23. Bobby Portis had 24 in 31 minutes off the bench. He looks like he's ready to roll with this team, and I don't know that Dwight Howard is ever going to play for the Wizards. So Portis is impressing me. I'll admit, I didn't know that he could shoot this kind of percentage while also shooting as far away as he has been, and it's quite conceivable that he cools off soon. But it's been a really nice start to his Wizards tenure. I'll give him the golf clap. On the other side of that same coin, Jabari Parker finally cooled off after a couple of big ones. He was convincing me to buy in a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit the waiver wire after this mega clunker. The problem is this is going to happen with Washington. Because if you take one look at their roster, and just all the guys that played in this game, plus Thomas Satoransky and Sam Decker. Listen to the names I'm about to read off. I'm going to exclude Bradley Beal, and I'm going to exclude Chasen Randall. And every other name that I read is a guy that could play at least 2 positions on the floor. Maybe you could exclude Thomas Bryant as well. Some of them 3 positions. Some of them 4. So maybe you put Beal in there because he played point guard a little bit in this game anyway. So Beal's a point guard or a shooting guard, fine. Ariza is basically a 2, a 3, or a 4. Portis is a 4 or a 5. Wesley Johnson is a 2, 3, or a 4. Jordan McRae, I don't even know what the hell he is, probably a 2 or a 3. Jeff Green, 3, 4, or 5. Jabari Parker, 3, 4, or 5 in this system. Satoransky, 1, 2, or 3. Sam Decker, 4 or 5. Everybody's everything. So they go to these weird mishmash lineups of whoever's warm on a given night. And so in this one, it was Portis, Ariza, Beal, and Wesley Johnson was playing well, so he saw some extra minutes. But Jeff Green wasn't playing that well, so his minutes were down at 28. And Jabari Parker was terrible, and his minutes were down at 20. You had to sort of know this was going to happen to Parker because he played so hard in those first 2 games with the Wizards. He actually had defensive stats. He had 7 defensive stats in those first 2 games. He never does stuff like that. So you had to know with NBA guys, if they go at 100% for 2 games, they're going to have to go at 75% for 2 games to balance it out to where they're not just gassed all the time. So Parker could probably use an all-star break. We'll see how he does against Toronto. I wouldn't change my outlook yet. I still think he's going to see generally mid-20s in minutes. And with the way this Wizards team plays, which has basically turned into kind of a street ball type of deal, they're not guarding anybody, he'll probably have enough wiggle room to put up some stats. So don't bail on it yet. The guy I also want to spend a moment on here is Thomas Bryant, who once again logged 16 and a half minutes and put up just outside top 100 kind of fantasy stuff with 8 points, 8 boards, an assist, a block on 4 out of 7 shooting. It's just not going to happen. But I also can't bring myself to part with him because he's number 105 in 9-cat in 19 minutes a game. So just under that, he's like a top 115 center. And all you need is one game where they play an opponent and it's like, oh, he's going to have to go big in this one. I thought this was going to be that game, honestly. Of course, with Bobby Portis around, that it's not quite an easy a sell. They now truly have another option at a big man spot that they could use. It doesn't have to be Jeff Green anymore. It could be Portis. So I'm okay with moving on from Thomas Bryant. I really love his fantasy game. It's tailor-made for 9-cat, but also he's not seeing enough minutes to get him over that hump. He's so close. But I don't think he's ever going to quite get over that ledge. Not with Scotty Brooks running things and not now that there's another actual center on the roster. So I'm not saying just drop a guy. That's a weird thing to do. But if there's someone out there that pops up, and we've been talking about guys here, you make the move. New guy for Detroit is Wayne Ellington. I'm very interested in how this thing shakes itself out. He played 19 minutes in his Pistons debut. I'm guessing his minutes are going to ramp up because they basically hinted that they wanted him to take Reggie Bullock's job. That was as the starting shooting guard on this team, alongside Reggie Jackson, Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin, and Andre Drummond. Well, in this particular one, Langston Galloway got the started shooting guard, and he was terrible. No points, 6 rebounds, but Wayne Ellington was also terrible. He went 1 for 8, 2 points, 4 boards, 2 assists. It looked like a guy that was pressing a little bit in his first game with a new team. It didn't work all that well. Meanwhile, Luke Kennard actually played okay coming off the bench. He had 4 3-pointers. Super low usage situation. The thing I like about Wayne Ellington is that he's not afraid to fire the 3 ball. He's not going to be bashful. Like some of these guys, like Kennard, for example, if it's not dropping for him, he's just going to stop shooting. Ellington's not. He's going to go get his 3s up. He took 7 3-pointers in 19 minutes in this game. Normally, he's going to make 2 or 3 of those. And if you give him another 9 minutes on top of that, he's going to take another 2 or 3 3-pointers, and he's going to make another one. So I do feel like there's a world, and it's not that far-fetched. I think there's about a 50-50 shot. Wayne Ellington is a guy that averages 3 3-pointers or more the rest of the year. The question is, how soon will Detroit ramp him up to the correct number of minutes that we need to get him there? And the answer is probably after the All-Star break. So if you're going to pick up Ellington, you have to be comfortable with sitting on him for a couple of ball games. Or you squat on someone else and you make the move on Ellington maybe over the All-Star break. you got to be judicious with your moves here, right? A lot of leagues, you got league move limits that are going to last over the 2 weeks of the break. That's all I really wanted to pay attention to with Detroit. Brooklyn and Toronto. I wasn't paying attention to much. I was surprised, though, that Alan Crabb got 31 minutes in this game. Some of that's because Damari Carroll was out with knee soreness, and also Spencer Dinwiddie is due back in about 2 weeks. So that's going to put the squeeze even further on all the guards for this Brooklyn team. But as it stands right now, they still played well. D'Angelo Russell had 28 and 14 in a big ball game. Shabazz Napier even played okay off the bench in 16 minutes. Crabb had 22 points on 6 3-pointers. Joe Harris hit a career-high 7 3-pointers in this game. Toronto didn't bother to play a whole lot of defense. Am I picking up Alan Crabb now that he's back? I mean, I guess you could give him a look. You know what he'll do. It's not that dissimilar from the Wayne Ellington stuff. I would argue that Crabb has a much worse steals profile on a per-minute basis. Prior to going down, and it was a long haul for Allen, he missed 2 months of basketball. He was actually playing a lot for Brooklyn. He was logging 32 minutes a game over about the 2 weeks prior to his knee injury, and he was banging through a ton of 3-pointers at a largely unsustainable clip. He's not going to average 5 a game. He will have stretches where he hits 5 a game. And so, again, if you want to ride that, that's fine. He's a Cal Bear, so you know he's got my love. I don't think that this is something that's going to hold up. Point of reference, Alan Crabb averaging 25 minutes a game this year. In the games he's played with Brooklyn, he's ranked outside the top 230. Wayne Ellington in 21 minutes is ranked around 170. That's the comparison of fantasy profiles, where fewer turnovers, more steals balance out against the fact that one guy has actually logged more minutes than the other. He's been worse. He's been a greater detriment to your fantasy team because of poor shooting, not enough defensive stuff, and that's why we're looking at Ellington over Crabb, because if you put them on an equal playing field, if they're both playing 30 minutes, Wayne is the guy who's going to be ranked higher. Right now, though, with Dinwiddie and Carroll out, it's Crabb, probably for the next, again, 10 to 13 days, something like that. And I'm guessing it may flip-flop. I don't know for sure how Ellington's minutes are going to shake themselves out, but I have a feeling. Marc Gasol's minutes were up a little bit in his second game with Toronto. He played 22 minutes in this one and had 16 and 6 with 2 assists, a steal, a block, and a 3-pointer. He went 7 out of 9 from the field. I mean, he's just going to annihilate second units if that's really where they're going to keep him. I'm interested to see how Toronto plays this thing because Serge Ibaka has been a man possessed since he realized that his job was in jeopardy. Pascal Siakam still saw his 35 minutes. Danny Green, 33. Kawhi, 34. Kyle Lowry, 34. The only guy that's getting dinged a little bit right now is Serge Ibaka. Raptors also assigned Jeremy Lin. I don't think that he's going to play much of a fantasy role, but, you know, maybe they'll surprise me. They've also got Patrick McCaw coming in, so they've sort of retooled the bench to try to maintain some measure of depth after trading away JV, DeLon Wright, CJ Miles, and getting Marc Gasol. I still think that Gasol's numbers are going to continue to go up. I don't know how they're going to piecemeal it together, but 22 minutes still isn't enough for basically an all-star center that they traded for. Portland, Oklahoma City, not a super interesting game. Nice to see Jake Layman having another decent ball game. He's been not awful, we'll say, but super inconsistent. That's the real problem. When you're playing off the bench, it's hard. When you're not a wild per-minute guy, it's hard. He's obviously been a lot better lately than he was early in the season. In fact, he's number 73 over the last 2 weeks on 57% shooting, a number that he can't keep up. He had 4 blocks in this game, which I don't think will ever happen again. He doesn't assist or rebound very much, even though he can be on the floor for 30 minutes at a wing position, even a power forward job. He's close, but again, Portland has too many movable pieces. You know, Aminu's starting at the power forward spot. Could they play Layman at the 3? Yeah, but then there's Harkless and Evan Turner there. There's just always something in his way. So even though he's been playing well lately, he's not going to keep up the 57% shooting with 3-pointers in the mix. It's just not sustainable. And if that number comes down, his rank drops from 73 outside the top 100. Simple as that, because the defensive stats have not been there. I like him, just not enough. Paul George is amazing. That's all you need to say about Oklahoma City. They had 2 triple-doubles in this game. Not the first team that's done it this year. Lonzo Ball and LeBron James did it for the Lakers earlier in the season. Deonte Burton played pretty well with Jeremy Grant on the sideline, for whatever that's worth. Clippers in Minnesota, high-scoring game, and Minnesota prevails with a big change in their starting lineup. Dario Saric now has officially jumped over Taj Gibson and is playing actual starters minutes. This is a run, don't walk guy to pick up. These types of scenarios don't present themselves all that often when you take a guy who you've actually seen do it before, meaning Philadelphia last year with Dario. He played 29 minutes a game and averaged 15 and 7 with a little less than a steal and 2 3-pointers a game. That is well within reach if he's playing 30 minutes in a zero-defense Wolves lineup. These types of guys are rare. They're rare because they have the portfolio and the opportunity wasn't there. So we already know what they're going to do if the opportunity presents itself, especially in a spot where the team needs more spacing out of that first unit. Andrew Wiggins doesn't space the floor, and he didn't play in this ball game, so yeah, probably a few extra shots for Dario. Derrick Rose did play. He logged 24 and a half minutes in this ball game and scored 22 points with 6 assists, a steal, and a block. That's a good sign. That means he can probably withstand an extra minute or two beyond that in the next ball game. Jeff Teague played 35 minutes. That's a really good sign for him as well. And not surprisingly, the Wolves were a lot better with Teague and Rose back in the lineup and guys like Isaiah Cannon and Jared Bayless squeezing out minutes at the end of the bench. I don't know if they're better with or without Andrew Wiggins. I mean, you can't make that call on one ball game, and he doesn't miss many. But I can tell you they'd be better if Rob Covington was playing that spot. How about that? I don't know about Josh Okogie versus Wiggins, but certainly Covington. By the way, news that sort of eluded me yesterday on the Covington front is that apparently he was cutting and moving around and doing better stuff. He wasn't taking contact yet, but folks that cover the Wolves, it was a guy that works for a Minnesota radio station, said that he was at practice, and Covington looked like he was probably about a week to a week and a half away. So perhaps we'll see him after the All-Star break. That was always my hope, but I was losing hope when we hadn't really heard anything about it. That would be a game changer. But again, the big point of this ball game, Dario Saric, he should be gone from your waiver wire before this podcast even airs on Tuesday morning. If he's not, add him immediately. 30-plus minutes for that dude. Easy money. Milwaukee, they're a non-factor. Chicago, well, Otto Porter, 18 and 7 with 4 assists, a steal, and a couple of 3-pointers. That's a pretty good mark for him. I don't know that he's going to be able to put those kinds of rebounding and assist numbers up on a daily basis, but he's playing 37 minutes. He's involved in the offense. That's all you can ask for because the other stuff with him, never in question. He's going to get you steals, blocks, threes, good percentages. He's a wonderful 9-cat guy, and if he was a buy low from his first game or first 2 games in Chicago, this game might be wiping that out. Meanwhile, Chris Dunn, he went to the locker room briefly. He's really looked bad lately. I think you got to hold on, though. There's just he's the starting point guard of a bad NBA team, bad or good, it doesn't matter. He's getting a ton of minutes, and generally he's taking his mid-range jumpers and whatnot. But the assists, the steals have been very good. There's still room there, even if he doesn't get up where we thought he might at the beginning of the year. Dallas was a team we were keeping an eye on. The front court, Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell, and they both had relatively poor games against Houston. Dallas just didn't play well in this one. Luka Doncic had 21, 10, and 8, and then the rest of the team combined for 83 points. It's pretty bad. They didn't shoot the ball all that well. Dwight Powell logged a few extra minutes because he was one of the few guys shooting the ball well. The thing I didn't like on the Kleber front, now you'll remember I made the argument that I wasn't all that upset about his last slow one. This one's a little bit more upsetting because only 2 rebounds in 23 minutes, that's rough. They only had 33 rebounds in the entire ball game. Certainly one note is Houston takes a boatload of threes, so you often see guards and wings with higher rebound totals against the Rockets. Luka had 10 long rebounds. Big men end up having that thing bounce right past them as they're boxing out near the rim. So I don't want to take too much away from it. Kleber still had a block and a 3 in this bad performance. The 3 turnovers probably was the worst part of it for me. I'm giving him at least another couple of ball games because he's the starting center at this point on the Mavericks, a team that should be able to figure out how to integrate these pieces, and they just got bludgeoned by an angry Rockets team. Chris Paul, by the way, looking better these days. He's quietly starting to hum along a little bit. Doesn't mean anything. It's not like he's not owned in your league, but just good to see. Kenneth Faried, you just keep playing him until Clint Capella comes back. And then finally, the last game on the docket for Monday, Miami sucks. New look lineup, who cares? At some point, it all runs out of steam. Everybody was bad for Miami. James Johnson was basically the only dude who survived this ball game. I guess you could argue Kelly Olynyk maybe did also. Hassan Whiteside did not. He had been on a pretty good run, and he totally fell apart in the altitude in Denver. Was this a back-to-back for Miami? I probably should have looked that up. If it was, this is the altitude back-to-back. I can't remember if they played on Sunday. Screw it. I'll look it up while we're talking right now. They did. They had the night game in Golden State. We should have been fading Miami for as long as you could fade a team in this one. Denver by 9.5 was the line. Teams playing in altitude on a back-to-back from the West Coast. That's a soul-crushing trip. So don't read too much into this. It's literally the greatest fatigue game that the NBA will schedule anymore. Since they eliminated the 4 games in 5 nights, the back-to-back in altitude is the new it'll-break-you game. And then, with a team like Miami, sometimes you think maybe they can overcome it because they go so deep. But, I think it's pretty clear they could not. So, whoops, forgot to put money on that ball game. I got too many things going on these days, folks. Too many things to track. Monty Morris played well. Jamal Murray also played well. This is a weird game for Denver. It was a blowout, so the minutes were a little bit kind of misdistributed. Malik Beasley continues to put up decent to good numbers. Not much peripheral stuff in this game with Gary Harris on the shelf. Paul Millsap made his return, and Mason Plumlee still managed to log 31 minutes. That was surprising. I'm wondering if that's something we might see continue, because the last time they got fully healthy, you actually saw Plumlee take a hit. This time it was actually Trey Lyles that completely vanished in this ball game. Is there a universe where they actually want to keep using Mason Plumlee for medium-sized minutes even after Paul Millsap comes back? I don't know. Look at some of these other games where minutes were down around 19. That wasn't enough for him to do damage. And in that ball game, Paul Millsap played 29 minutes. Trey Lyles got 13. They went smaller, and Plumlee only got his 19 minutes. So I don't know. It worries me, frankly, that he could just vanish on a moment's notice. But if he's playing 30 minutes, he's a pretty useful center to have. He rebounds, he assists, he gets steals and blocks. He's going to shoot the ball well from the field, and then you just pray. Put your hands together that he does not go to the free throw line. Tuesday's card, just 5 games. Lakers are in Atlanta. Jeremy Lin got bought out, so how does that change things? Trae Young obviously is logging the bulk of the point guard minutes, but does that now mean that a guy like a Kent Bazemore could pick up a few of Lin's minutes kind of running the second unit? Another reason to hang on to Baze just a little bit longer. I don't know. I'm hopeful but not optimistic. Basically saying there's a long shot here, but it's possible they let him control the team. He's kind of run the offense before for Atlanta, and you throw him in there with the other second unit guys, he could actually go a little bit nuts. Lakers need to win this game desperately. They got to pile up wins where they can. We'll keep an eye on Reggie Bullock, obviously, JaVale McGee, who's been playing better now with Ivica Zubac's gone. I feel like I skipped over the Clippers game. Did I just jump the Clippers game? I did, didn't I? Where did that one go? Oh, I talked for like 10 minutes about Dario Saric that I forgot to talk about the Clippers. All right, well, we'll loop back to that in just a second after we finish talking about Tuesday. I'm losing my mind all of a sudden here on the show. Orlando, New Orleans, obviously you're just watching guys like Kendrick Williams and whether or not injured players like Elfrid Payton actually play. Minutes for a guy like an Etuan Moore, does that ramp up? Do they actually use Stanley Johnson at all? Pelicans are dangerous to me because guys could just come and go on a night-to-night basis outside of the sort of main 2 or 3. It's why I've been a little bit bearish on some of these Pelicans pickups. You win some, you lose some. I'm just trying not to use up my games cap on guys that I don't fully trust. San Antonio, we got word that Derek White is expected back after the All-Star break. He should be stashed or owned in whatever possible manner you can. Memphis we should be getting our Jonas Valanciunas debut game, but, and it is a big but, my friends, it is a large but, he might not play in a back-to-back, which is just stupid. He's coming back from a thumb injury, guys. It's not like it's a conditioning thing, but whatever. They're going to do what they're going to do. Very curious to see how this goes against San Antonio. If he plays, is he going to get 15 minutes in his first game as they work him in? Are they going to try to get him to 20? What's the actual goal with him? We don't really know. But if he's going to sit out the back-to-back, you might want to just leave him on your injured list a little bit longer and utilize him after the All-Star break when maybe he plays in the back-to-back on the other side of the break. Skipping this one, you bring him off your IL. That basically means you need to drop a guy on your team, and then you're getting what? Like a half game out of Valanciunas while he acclimates himself? I'm really excited for him to come back, but we kind of need to be just a hair patient, a little bit longer, a tiny bit more patience with JV so that we can deploy him at the right time and at a time where it's not going to negatively impact our roster. Elsewhere in Memphis, we're keeping an eye on Delon Wright, whether his minutes going to look like. How does he split them with guys like Avery Bradley on that team? Conley's role, does that ever start to scale back a little bit? Justin Holiday, when does Slow-Mo come back? It's not yet. A lot of unanswered questions with the Memphis Grizzlies. Boston and Philadelphia, not a ton of unanswered questions out there. No Kyrie Irving, so it's going to be more Terry Rozier and a little more of everybody else. And then Utah and Golden State is a non-factor from a fantasy standpoint. Back to the Clippers. I don't know why I lost my mind. I lost my train of thought on that one. I got so wrapped up in the Minnesota Timberwolves that we just didn't talk L.A. Lou Williams scored 45. We knew he had it in him. It just hadn't happened this year. He's been playing better since his injury, and I only wonder if maybe something was bugging him before he got hurt because he's been a much better value recently. And, it's not a ton of sample size, but the scoring has been up for him because when the other stuff isn't working, he better put up some big-time points to make up for it. Landry Shamet played well again and played 33 minutes again. I don't know if it's going to stick. Wilson Chandler remains on the shelf. Garrett Temple only played 18 minutes as the starter in this game. And Shamet's been hot 2 games in a row. He had 15 points on 7 shots in this ball game. I think he had 17 points on like 7 or 8 shots in his last ball game as well. JaMychal Green played well off the bench with 11 and 7, 3 threes, and a steal. You just had a lot of guys. It's kind of the same issue where the Clippers sent a bunch of dudes out. They sent a bunch of dudes back in. We thought maybe it would allow some of our favorite guys to rise to the top, and it didn't. Patrick Beverley, slow game. He only took 2 shots in 31 minutes. That's a usage rate of 3, friends. 4 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, and a block, though. That's the stuff that you have him on your team for. The points are gravy. You just want him to hit a 3-pointer. That's it. That's the one thing that in this ball game you're like, damn it, I wanted that one little nugget. Shamet, we're going to keep an eye on, but again, the efficiency is unsustainable. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I thought that he would play a larger role, but their starters got creamed by Minnesota, and so the bench got extra minutes. Simple as that. But we're going to have to keep a close watch on the Clippers. And then it's not really an I told you so, because I still think that Ivica Zubac settles into a late-round profile as a center. But I had a lot of you guys coming after me and saying I was way too down on Zubac. Guys, I'm a Laker fan. I've been watching this dude. He's not a transcendent NBA talent. He'll get in there and he'll have some good ball games, and you saw it when he had that stretch for LA where everybody else was out and he was sort of forced into playing mammoth minutes. He had a 24 and 16 game against Sacramento. Those will happen. But the problem is that you also get the other side of things. And now he's on a Clippers team that has other options. They can play JaMychal Green at center. They can play Montrezl Harrell at center. If he's not cutting it, and if he's getting roasted like he was in this ball game, let us yank him. And that's what happened here. He got 15 minutes, 3 points, a rebound, and an assist, one of the worst fantasy lines of the night. He also had 4 turnovers. To me, I still think it's going to balance out to something like 11 and 8 for Ivica with about a block a game, late-round center profile, but don't expect too much more than that. This is who he is, and it's who he has been, and there's sort of no reason to think that that's going to change anytime soon. So reasonable expectations. That's what you got to set with this stuff. And if you have those, well, you're in business. I said I was going to keep it closer to 30 than 60. I intend to keep that promise. We are right around the 40-minute mark now on Fantasy NBA Today. So what I will tell you is, as we take this now into Fantasy NBA Today overtime, hit me up on Twitter. I'm going to start a thread related to the podcast where you can ask questions about anything we talked about on the show or anything else that's going on in the fantasy landscape. Guys that you're comparing, should I drop so-and-so? I'm picking up this guy. How does it fit my team? What are we expecting going forward? All of that stuff we're going to get into because there are so many new faces in new places. This is a big couple of games leading into the All-Star break, and then we set our strategy coming out on the other side. Again, check out the premium subscription, also our DFS contest, Beat the Expert with Mike Apotria. That's at DraftKings, and we'll be posting the Twitter link all over the place. And as usual, I will remind you, if you'd like to get on our DFS mailing list, let me know. Simple as that. I am Dan Besbris. This is Tuesday's Fantasy NBA Today. Enjoy the light card. I'll be watching the Laker game because I need to see my guys rack up a couple of W's somewhere along the way if they're going to climb into this mix. They're better with LeBron, by the way. I've noticed that. Simple, effective handicapping here from your pal Dan Besbris. We'll talk about gambling over on the Twitter lands. That's where we'll keep that stuff. I've got some catching up to do on that one as well, so I don't want to say anything that is ahead of the charts, and obviously you could see because I missed that Denver Miami back-to-back situation that I'm off my game because of the trade deadline. I've been laser focused on fantasy the last few days. Again, have a lovely Tuesday, everyone. Back at you tomorrow. We'll have Mike on the show to talk DFS, get you ready for our contest. Thursday, Dan, I'll be going solo with you. And then Friday, we'll wrap up the week with Brew. That'll do it. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.